Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us for day 2 of DevOps Days Portland 2021. And Ciora couldn't be here today. Please reach out to her with some virtual kudos and high fives on Twitter. We've dropped her handle into the general channel. Bill, you want to lead us in with some questions?
Let's see. What takeaway from the talk resonated with you most? What's the thing that you saw that speaks to you? Do you want me to answer
I'll take
first?
that one.
Nice.
I'll take that one. The one thing I really liked was apply what you learn, and it really harkened back to something I did when I was actually in high school. I was helping out at the senior center of intro to computers, and was doing a Lotus 1-2-3. So showing how my age there, but just how spreadsheets operated, and I was going through things, and it wasn't really, people weren't really getting it. And then I decided we're going to take the 1040 easy tax form and put things in there, and reading the instructions, and then having that concrete example for them to apply what sort of we were doing with things really helped resonate with the I would say students, but the seniors that I was teaching for. So I think learning things, but until you put it into practice, you're not really going to retain that, and that's not really going to be part of what you to retain that knowledge.
My favorite has actually been how she kept mentioning how we need to take breaks has been the big takeaway that I've learned over the past couple years. It actually started in gym. Someone was all like, yeah, we don't get stronger by going to the gym. We get stronger by resting after we go to the gym. That's when your muscles actually build. And very much like she was talking about, we need to have our sleep. That's when our brain actually locks those memories in so that we can recall them later. And that was my favorite. What about yours, Bill?
I wish I had learned that one better when I was in school. I was just reminded how much the learning in public helps for me. When I would write articles for a job, or I would speak or something, I felt like I had to know it better. And one thing that I really appreciate, Julia Evans, who in most places goes by Bork, makes these programming zines that are super. And she's written about how it's partially she goes out and says, I want to be able to explain this to somebody. I'll start one. And that is the start of, wow, I have no idea how this works. Let me learn more. And I love that style. And I think it works really well for me.
So speaking of styles, we've all heard of learning styles, right? Like Ciora mentioned this. One thing I don't think we have enough public discussion of is specific techniques for learning styles. And also, I feel like we tend to have a very black and white definition of too many things, including learning styles. So when you say, I am a verbal learner, it's actually far more likely that you are primarily a verbal learner, but you can learn very well with other things if they're given in the right format, the right technique. And so I'm wondering what your learning styles are and how you use those, what specific ways you use to learn things based on your learning style. Is that a clear question?
Yeah.
What about you?
So I tend to, I guess it's multifaceted. I like, hearing it, reading it, but I also kind of harken back to one of my idols, which is Richard Feynman, who writes a lot about learning, and was just about, if you want to master a subject, teach it. So I would explain, the idea of explaining it. Okay, and Bill sort of touched on this as well, and it was in the presentation as well. But if you try to articulate it yourself, so you hear it and then you verbalize it back out, and that is a way of doing it. But also, I don't know, getting up and moving around while doing it as well helps me, because you're exercising multiple systems in your body. So then something else could trigger something, other pieces as well of your muscle memory.
Bill, what are your favorite ways of learning?
Trip and I were talking about this right before, actually. I really have to try something and do it. I can watch a million videos about how to do something and it just doesn't quite stick in there. I'll retain some trivia, but not the ability. And so I have to write little proof concepts and stuff at work, for instance. I just have to do a little of the thing to know how it works, and then it sticks. And I definitely think, Joe, like you're saying, the trying to teach it to people and write it down and explain it helps a lot. It's one of the reasons I wanted to teach when I was in college. The reason I did teach for a bit is because I like doing that, and I think it's a good way to make sure you like to fill in the gaps in your knowledge. How about you, Trip?
I am very much someone who learns best if I can see a thing written down and also get my hands on it, which is why I struggled at the beginning of college, is because so many people were just talking at me and my brain doesn't absorb information when it's being talked at. So I figured out that if I take really illustrative notes, the way that Siora was talking about, if I am involving enough colors and different fonts, then it takes up enough of my brain that I can stay focused enough to hear the next thing. One way I had an offsite with my team, and one of the activities we did was we figured out each other's learning styles, and then we were trying to come up with like a team mission statement, and we kept being like, what about this? Oh, what about this? And we kept going in circles, and then I was like, wait a second. None of us are auditory learners. Why are we not writing this down? And then we just got a bunch of sticky notes with the words and we reformatted and we were done in like 5 minutes. So like really using that to make progress on things that are otherwise just spiraling. Maybe we're not speaking the right language. Maybe it's not compiling in the humans' brains.
I was just wanted to follow up about the writing, and it just triggered remembering something that a teacher of mine, 7th grade, geography and learning all these different places around the world, and struggling with that. He goes, try writing it down left-handed, because you're thinking about it more than the lettering with your right hand. It's automatic, but doing it the left hand, you were invoking your brain more on that. So writing has some pieces, but back to you. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, we just got this really good question from the audience. So does anyone have any advice for improving the extraction of information out of people who might not be fantastic teachers?
I think one of the things is that is finding ways. So I will paraphrase in my interpretation of this, but if you're trying to get information out of somebody who, maybe not a teacher setting, but just somebody who has knowledge that you're trying to glean the knowledge, is to try to find the ways that they are comfortable in, or getting those things. Or maybe it is in a setting where you're not coming at them, and sort of with like, tell me about this. You need to tell me about this, but sort of like be in a situation, oh, what do you think about this? And then those leading questions to pull them, to pull them along the path where they'll want to share things. Sometimes people are very, territorial about their knowledge. And so sometimes it also is just, stroking their ego. Some which is just saying, wow, Bob, you're the expert on this, man. I wish I understood this the way that you do, or things like that. And, make them, feel like they want to share. That's the thing, is trying to get them to want to share said information.
one of my favorites, very closely related to what you were saying, is go in if you've tried to get them to explain things and it is not happening because there is some disconnect. I like to be like, cool, here's what I think is happening. And then their need to make sure that the information is correct, like they will dive into the parts that you're missing. And then if you just keep being like, here's what I know, they'll keep correcting you. So basically be the annoying kid in the front row, constantly raising your hand is my advice. That might just be because I'm the annoying kid in the front row. Bill, do you have other ideas?
I think it's like analogous to the learning styles thing where like some people just express themselves better in a certain way, right? And so you have to kind of feel out, okay, do you want me to watch you do it and take notes? Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to write things? Do you want to whatever? And that assumes that they're willing to teach, because I think I may be reading too much into the question, but there's a difference between the person just isn't very, they can't express it very well, and they're actively kind of holding it. And I think we've all worked with people who were in that second category of like, this is my thing, I don't want to teach it. And there's a lot of tricks you have to do there, right? There's a lot that requires a little more, I don't want to say subterfuge, but like you have to be more careful how you extract it from someone. But hopefully that's not the majority of our environment. Hopefully it's mostly just people who aren't amazing at, I don't know, making videos or speaking or writing or whatever. Nobody's good at everything.
Do y'all remember Kinsey Woodbridge giving a talk and they were talking about how like we have radishes and broccoli and Brussels sprouts as people, and if anybody who's watching this now who hasn't seen this, check out our YouTube stream, because Kinsey's talk is one of my favorites, and it's about documentation and how to get that out of specific types of personalities. Yeah, strong recommend. And we still have some time. Audience, if you have questions, please put them in. You know what? I'm going to go back to my favorite part of the story, where Sierra was telling us to like focus and take breaks, and she mentioned the Pomodoro Technique. And I just want to say that I've had good luck with this. I've got like a specific Pomodoro block that'll like time things for me, and then you can get like cute novelty egg timers just all over the place, and it's one way, especially being virtual and having so many other things going on in our lives this year, being able to stay on task when you've got a computer that's capable of pulling up so many different apps to distract you, setting yourself a timer and not letting yourself get distracted by other things. I usually use two different browsers. One is my work browser, and the other one has all the stuff that I'm going to have open on my work computer, but I should only be working on during breaks, and I'll just minimize that browser when I'm not active. And also lots of fidget stuff is also really good to keep me from just popping into that other Slack to see what's going on in the the shitposting channel. What are your favorite techniques for focusing now?
I think you just reminded me of something, which is I, especially, my job, like most of ours, is right here. And there's an implied, like, everybody is always on Slack. Everybody's always accessible. And I've had to really give myself room to quit all of it, set myself to do not disturb and just get heads down on something, because otherwise people unintentionally blow your stack, right? You're like deep in a problem, you've got it, ding, and it's gone. And they don't mean it. They just, and so I have to treat it like I now treat email, which is I don't have it open all the time. I like open it, look at it, and then go, okay, I'm done with you. I close it for a bit. Sorry to anybody who's emailed me in the last, 3 years, but it's a little spotty, but you really I have to just give myself some time to close it and actually work, because otherwise I can't focus. And I don't know what book I'm taking this from, but there's this idea of like snacking work, where you're doing things that are kind of quick and like easy And you can spend your whole day just doing these little like 5-minute tasks and feel like you're getting something done, but not actually move things forward. Whereas you really need to spend an hour or half an hour doing something, writing a document, working on that interview plan, whatever. I'm putting off interview planning right now. I'm not putting it off right now. I'm running a conference, but I've been putting it off. And that stuff never moves forward in like 5-minute chunks necessarily. What?
Audience question that kind of pairs in with this that I'm going to cede. So Joe, pick whichever one. Is there an alternate to the Pomodoro stuff? I've not had much luck with it. I tend to stop the timer and then immediately go back to what I'm working on, and suddenly I haven't moved in 3 hours.
So the one thing I was thinking about the Pomodoro method was when my kids were younger, there was this a thing called Fly Lady that had this website, and it was all about doing like chunks of 15 minutes for the kids to like clean your room for 15 minutes. I mean, it may be a huge mess. Okay, well then break it down to something that's 15 minutes, like just clean this shelf or doing something. So maybe when when those things on there, you schedule them. I see a lot of there's been a lot of focus now where they're talking, on Twitter articles that people are posting, is that people who are really successful work on scheduling time for tasks instead of to-do lists. So you'll say, well, this is the time that I will answer emails or things like that. So if you have those tasks that you're like, oh, I'm going to do 15 minutes or whatever, well, put that into your schedule where it's up against a hard deadline. So you're going to take 15 minutes before this meeting, and so you have a natural break that's going to cause you to do things. One of the things that was pointed out that it remembered was about getting rest and then having like the brain capacity to do things was, I always, in college, I had a roommate who would cram. He thought that Mountain Dew wasn't sweet enough. So he had this big gulp glass, and he would take 2 Mountain Dews and put 4 scoops of Country Time lemonade and mix up the slurry and drink it. And he'd stay up for like 3 days straight and then crash and things. But I remember he was up all night cramming for a final and fell asleep in the final because he was so tired. And it's like, I always went and said, I know that I need a good night's sleep before an exam. So I kind of was of the mindset, if I don't know this by now, I deserve to fail this class. So I would go in rested and be able to be have all my mental faculties for said exam. So get sleep.
All right, we got to wrap up now. So again, head over to Twitter, give Ciora some virtual high fives, and we're going to take a quick break, and then we will head into our next talk.